To hell and back is in the job description. Being roughed up, scuffed up, run over, kicked, thrown, dropped, dunked, and done the unthinkable is a duty we've embraced for more than 40 years. Through superior engineering and constant innovation, only Pelican has conquered the chaos a life of ambition can dish out. And we've done it to empower you.
Yak Gadget, made in America, based outside of Nashville, Tennessee. Yak Gadget offers all kinds of storage accessories, quick mount motor mounts, anchor systems, track mounted accessories, even paddles. Go to yakgadget.com and get your kayak decked out for your next trip out on the water.
The 153 Bait Company, based in Troy, Ohio, make everything from plastics to custom painted hard baits. Hook 'em hard and hook 'em often. All of our baits are made to order, and all of our hard baits are hand painted to order. So go to the153anglers.com to place your order today.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. I can hear Drew breathing like crazy right now.
Really? That's because I'm still, my heart's still pounding from the Susquehanna smallmouth that would they just train wreck your spinnerbait or whopper plopper. So I'm still excited.
Well, glad to have everybody back. Another good show. We got one of everybody's favorites coming back to join us again to cover the probably one of the most popular Hobie stops out on the Susky. And for most people, Drew had a pretty, decent weekend. We'll get to it. But yeah, I don't want to waste any time. Everybody loves this guy right here. So here he is, Mr. Back-to-back winner, Jody Queen. What's up, Jody?
Hey, guys.
What's
Good
up,
to see
buddy?
you. Not much, man. Living the dream.
Cashing checks, man.
That's right. He's cashing checks with his cash and rods.
Eating food, cashing checks, and paying bills.
That's right.
And paying bills with it.
Man, that's about all we do anymore. I don't think I could ever get to a point at all where I could cash a check and it not go immediately to something, oh. So, Jody, glad to have you back, man. It's always a pleasure. You're always fun to talk to. Glad to have you with Drew here. I'm sure Drew's going to drill you with some questions if he hasn't already, because I know y'all were hanging out down there.
Yeah.
So let's just lead right into what the Susquehanna is for anybody that hasn't been up there, such as myself. So, and Drew, again, you were there. So if you want to talk about it, Jody, whoever.
Go ahead, Jody. You take it away, buddy.
I mean, about the river, the Susquehanna is in low water times is a slow-moving, docile, easily navigated smallmouth factory. And when it was at the water levels it makes it, a little more challenging. You got a lot more current. You got to, and I know Drew is a paddler, man. I'm telling you, hats off to you, brother. I mean, what you did up there was amazing, paddling in that type of current. I had problems with my 360 drive. Just, it was a good stiff current. Good job and congratulations. But yeah, the river is the common denominator between both of those conditions is you still smash them. And it's that type of fishery, and that's the reason why it draws crowds that it does. That Hobie Bos out there. I think last year it was well over 100, 129, something like that. This year it's 139. I think it's always going to be that way there. And the local contingent there is, they show up in mass too, man.
It's strong. Yeah, it's a bucket list, no doubt about it. It's a bucket list destination.
It's the type of place you go on vacation. Not just to fish a tournament, but you want to go there because of the smallmouth there.
Yeah, it's beautiful, scenic. Now, one thing I'll say about it is because it's very unique in the fact that it's so wide and it's so shallow. It's wide and shallow, not wide and deep like the Mississippi. And it's clear in the summer, especially clear in the summer, which does allow plant growth, right? Aquatic vegetation. So, okay, just if you could actually develop, a perfect smallmouth scenario ecosystem, this would be it. A lot of clear water times, vegetation,
Right.
all different kinds of grass, and tons of rock, obviously. So it's got shoals and rapids. Obviously, you've got everything for smallmouth there. And what really makes it great is the fact that because you have all of that, everything I describe is creating surface area. The more surface area you have in a fishery, the more places bait can hide, crawfish, hellgrammites. Therefore, you can support more of your bigger fish like smallmouth, obviously your predators. Within lakes, a lot of lakes, you don't have all that surface area because you got a lot of dead water, because there's a lot of depth, and then there's a point where oxygen doesn't go. So therefore you lose that part of the lake. Then you got all that open water, and there's just tons of dead water. The Susquehanna is so rare and unique because there's like no place where oxygen is depleted. It's got life everywhere.
Right.
So therefore that's why it's great. I mean, lakes silt in over time, and they bury all the surface area I'm talking about with the rocks and boulders and the grass. And so anyway, it's just a magical place, and obviously holds a lot of big smallmouth, and it's so big and wide that nobody can, and it's so big and wide for so long, it almost could never be overpressured, really. It's very challenging to get into a lot of those places for boats, especially. So it's hard for that place to get overpressured, even in today's, high pressured society.
So do you ever find on the Susky, do you ever find the too much of a good thing situation like you do, like when you find the new fishing spot on a lake, and let's say laydowns is the thing, but there's 5 million of them, and you don't have a fish on every one? Is there any of that, or is it just kind of a free for all up there?
I mean, I haven't experienced that on the Susky. I know exactly what you're talking about. I've been on, I tell you, an example is standing timber lakes. I mean, I've been on lakes with nothing but standing timber, and I've not caught anything off of it. The Susky's not really quite like that. It's like it has the right amount of everything. I mean, when you're standing there, there's a spot right there in front of the ferry boat campground. One day I pulled out, and I got to a shallow area, and I got out of my boat, and I just looked and counted. There was 12 grass beds in that area, and some of them were a half acre, 3/4 of an acre. And that was just what I could see from looking there. And, and moving up that bank, all the chutes and, that go in between those grass beds can hold fish, and they're all areas within reach. What I mean by that is you don't have to leave an area to go find an area. You don't have to leave the standing timber to go find the road beds. It's all right there. It's all right there. If they're not on the grass, they're on the eel grass on the flats right next to it. So and you can, and it's easy. It's an easy territory to cover. You got to spend some time doing it, but man, if they're pulled up on something, they're pulled up on something all over.
Yeah.
That makes me just hate. This was the one event that I really wanted to, I did a couple of places this year I haven't been, but this is the one that I really, really wanted to make, just because the moving current and being able to wade or stuff like that's my favorite way to fish. And I know some locals up there that were
anybody.
Yeah.
I would suggest anybody that has any inkling of wanting to explore that area and never has, you need to go. Anybody out there. If you're on the fence about it, go ahead and jump over.
I hope they go. I hope they go back there next year. Hopefully they will go back with the good turnout. But I mean, I know I'm not a proponent of going back to places over and over, but sometimes there's just exceptions to the rule. And then the Susquehanna is one of those, and they can expand the boundaries or move it to a little bit different area and still get some newness to it, but with the same awesome fishing. So hopefully they'll do that.
Yeah, I know the fact that they opened up the largemouth area down at the lower end of the river there. That was pretty cool for people who wanted the largemouth contingent. And actually, I talked to Jay Wallen up there, and he said that he dropped down in there. He went there one day and free fished and actually caught a couple of nice 18-inch largemouth, but he just felt like the smallmouth was going to outshine that. So he went
and
with smallmouth.
And they opened up a lot of the Juniata too, didn't they, this year? A lot more of it than last year, I believe.
Yes, they did. I mean, yes.
So
all the way up to the Thompson ramp, which is about a 17-mile stretch.
Yeah, that was helpful.
Yep.
So, Jody, let me ask you this, man. What you were saying is basically, so if you guys are listening, you've never been to the Susquehanna, you've got like a willow grass that's growing actually from, the ground, right, in these grassy islands you're talking about. And with the water being up, now those smallmouth can hide in that grass, right? And the bait fish can as well. It gives them somewhere to go. You've got that where the fish were. The fish were also on in the eel grass, which doesn't quite, it comes to the surface some, but it's a different kind of grass. That's another kind of grass they really like. You've got, shoals and rapids, right? And you've got the subtle shoals that are covered by the river at this level. Then you've got the actual true rapids with the big boulders that create the current breaks and the nice plunge pools where you catch them in. So then, of course, you've got wood, actual wood that's fallen on the bank. Yeah. So you got all those places that the smallmouth hold. And at the results, I remember hearing stories from every angler saying they caught fish out of each of those types of water. So to your point a second ago, winning fish could have come from any one of those. You don't need to go leave a certain type of cover to find fish because they're on a different type of cover per se, but you do need to find out what's special about your particular type of cover you're fishing, whether it's in the rapids and the shoals, it's the wood, it's the grass islands. And one thing that I found is exactly what you said at the results. And I know people listening to this, may not have watched those results, but basically you and I did find one pattern that was similar. And that was, I had a school of fish for about 30 minutes at 8 a.m. on the second day at the very head of an island. It was a true island with trees, but the head of the island had grass, the willow grass. And it created this little flat in front of it, and the smallmouth were busting bait there. And if you guys ever find smallmouth on the front side of a log, a boulder, an island, grass island, they're always there to feed because there's not a lot of current breaks on the front side. Current breaks are on the back side. So you kind of have to learn on each time you go to a river, are they being lazier on the back side, or are they on the front side being very aggressive? Fortunately for me, I saw them, like you were saying, I could see the minnows flickering, the bait, they're very small, and then the smallies would crush them. And I threw out there with a plopper, caught a couple on a plopper, then went to a small light wire spinnerbait, burning it on the surface. But every time I'd catch one, I'd put it on the board, take a photo. I go back to fishing. It's about a 5-minute gap between, 3 or 4 minute gap. They're already crushing bait again, and I'm back out there catching another one. And I probably caught 6 or 7, all 16.5 to 18 and 3/4 inches off that one flurry. And then I couldn't duplicate it again. Any other islands, it was just something special about that area. And then I went and found them on some wood later and had a similar flurry where the wind and the weather changed, and all of a sudden, every fish on that bank on the wood, I caught the same number, like 10 fish, all like 16 to 19 and a quarter off the wood on this one bank, and I lost a couple that probably would have had me kind of around the same length as you, and who knows? But you lost some too. So that's just fishing, But anyway, that's what I found.
Yeah, that's just fishing, and you're absolutely correct, dude. You're absolutely correct. I mean, there was a window, and it happened both days. I got lucky on the second day because it happened twice. But I just wanted to be in a certain area because on day one it happened for me, and in the area that I was fishing, it happened about 9:30, 10, somewhere in there. And I made sure on day 2 that I was in that area when those fish were setting up on the front ends of those grass beds. And you could tell because I could see 2 or 3 grass beds over. I could see bait flickering, and I would immediately head to that grass bed. And 8 times out of 10, I was catching a nice smallmouth off of them. And like you say, anytime, you got to think of a smallmouth like this. And this is true for other things too, but especially smallmouth. The biggest fish always get the best spawning spots. The biggest fish always get the best areas to feed. So the fronts of those grass beds is where those bait fish load up. The big fish are going to be right at the tip of them in that push water. Feeding up in there. That's where all my better fish came from. I mean, I caught a few nice fish down in the current seams and in other places, but my 19s that I caught, my 18 and a half and 18s, they all come off the front of those grass beds.
Yep.
And
So let's
that much water.
Well, that makes it even more fun.
Oh yeah.
So let's take a step back and kind of hit the pre-fish in front of it. On top of how did you approach it, what kind of advice would you have for someone that hasn't been up there? I saw some comments, and I can't remember where, of guys that got out of their comfort zone and went up to the Susky to fish, a moving body of water. That can be intimidating for a lot of people. Right. So something as, big, wide, and moving as the Susky, for someone never have doing it, what's your best way to approach it to kind of break it down, figure out where you're going to fish, especially because it's common knowledge. You're not the only people that say that it's covered in good smallmouth and that, you can be just about anywhere and catch a flurry like you're saying. So, but question for both of you, if you want to start.
I can tell you one experience I had with someone that was a friend of mine who wasn't used to fast water and fishing moving water. The first place I took him was an area of the Susky that had a decent amount of flow coming into it, but it was a slow hole that we started in. And, he got comfortable with it and gradually and got used to the current. And we ended up going in, into the heavier flows, and he was fine. And, and he caught great fish. And he was ready to go back. That first experience up there, if you're kind of on a learning curve anyway, you don't want to jump right into the ledges, man. You're not going to do that. So yeah, I just pick an area that's easily traversed and a little bit slower, and then work your way up to the rest of it. And there's plenty of areas like that on Susky.
Oh yeah. And those, areas like he's explaining for anybody listening that doesn't fish moving water, you fish any kind of moving creek or river anywhere, that an area that has good inflow but has that slowdown, that's a good area, especially if you've got any kind of rock or grass on top of it too, because you've got, oxygen and moving current coming in for the aggressive fish. And then some of them will, I don't know how many times, you'll go out there, think that you're going to catch them in the heavy current, and then they're actually like in the very bottom of that slack water, or they're catching in a current seam or in off the eddy. It's just that's a good area. Like let's say you're not a confident person paddling in current, that just gives you a perfect opportunity to do well and stay in your comfort zone. What about you, Drew? Any advice on that?
Yeah, you really need to, this is very important to have the right watercraft for a river. Not every boat is really, best suited for it. You need something that can maneuver pretty well. And granted, if you're really good at, pedal drive kayak, and with the water level the way it was, a little higher this time, you could definitely use those, especially if you need to kind of run fast to some of your spots. You can kind of outrace the competition. I know Ewing Minor, which is we haven't really actually mentioned him yet in the standings, but he got second, and we'd be remiss not to mention him. He was Jody was first, obviously. Ewing was second. I was third, and he told me he had to 20 people launch and hit his launch, and he had to go. So that was very helpful in that area, because it sounded like he was in a spot that didn't have a ton of big rapids, but he's also a younger guy and can is really athletic, so I think he can handle stuff real well. But most people, if you're going to go try anywhere that actually has some true rapids, you probably need a little bit smaller, maneuverable kayak. You know what I mean? And I wasn't really, even though I was in a kayak like that, like you mentioned, Jody, I was paddling. I actually didn't fish an area that was, ledges and rapids. You know what I mean? It wasn't really like that. But just be careful about which boat you're in, because it's very easy to get in a pinch there. And there are certain hole shapes, that lend themselves better to, work in a river in the rapids, because you need maneuverability is key in a river to avoid obstacles, because you're moving downstream fast. And it's also very key to when you kind of, ferry across, you want water to slide under your kayak. You want it to slide, not hit a broad wall or multiple, tri-hole, where there's all kinds of area where the friction of the water can push you further downstream when you're perpendicular with the current. So just be careful, get yourself in a good boat for it. And just really research about being a better paddler. I know we like to watch videos on fishing for sure, but when you're river fishing, guys, it's just as important to learn how to become a better paddler, because that's all going to get you in the proper position to make those casts. If you can't get your boat in the position, no matter if you're a charter captain for tuna or a bass boat angler or a kayak angler, that you're never going to be successful. So I would just say pay very much importance to the right kayak and learning to be a better paddler when you're river fishing.
Paddling, that's the biggest part. I see too many guys. We have local float areas here that, they get moving, and you see people, I don't want to say panic, but they'll go, as they're coming through a chute or where a current swaps them around, they just ease their paddles in the water. There's something very simple is you have to be moving faster or slower than what the current is to be able to correct.
Yep.
It's
right.
Like you can't slow down by just easing your paddle in the water. You have to dig. You have to do aggressive J's to get hard turns. And like you said, a lot of it's the kayak. I don't feel honestly, I've been in a few pedal kayaks and I don't feel comfortable in pedal kayaks in current areas. Probably the hull design, and I don't feel like it's responsive enough, because I like to be able to turn quickly when I'm in those switchbacks and stuff like that. I like to be really in control of it, and I don't feel that way with pedals.
Yeah, maybe they're better. Tell me this, Jody. Did you do a single access or did you do a float?
I did a single access during pre-fishing and decided on a float.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, Jimmy. That's a good point to make. And with the Hobie and the 360, you just don't have a paddle that goes. It's just not a 180. It's not back and forth, and you're just relying on your rudder. And that boat for its size turns really well in that water. The smaller boats like Drew, that little Jackson Coosa was a great boat that you put in there, man. I was probably one of my favorite river boats.
Mm-hmm.
The RS 117 in the Bonafide, man. That's a great little river boat. These companies, some of these companies have great little river boats. You just got to do a little bit of research, like Drew says, and just find the one that's going to maneuver well for you and get out there and you can be safe in it.
Yeah.
Crescent's got their line too. I've been watching you in your boat, man. Those little boats, man, they went well.
Yeah, I was in a CK1 Venture. I think it's only like $8.99. I mean, it's not expensive. And I believe the other one, the ultralight that I use a lot, is a 10-footer. Not everybody can fit in a 10-footer like I can, but it's only like $7.99. So, you can get out there and boats like that, like you're saying, these inexpensive paddle boats, and do well. But I was just curious if you're doing a float downstream in that 360 drive with the Hobie, I can understand how that is nice, because you can spin that any direction and kind of maneuver any direction, including backwards if you need to slow yourself down, right? I mean, you can go back upstream, even though you're facing downstream.
The big thing, the big thing that for me on the especially on the Susky up there was I can stop and I'm hands free. I'm not paddling to hold position. I'm not dropping an anchor, which, in my opinion, when you drop an anchor in swift current and you're close to the bank, it changes the dynamic of the water flow. Those fish feel it. It's different. You got something thumping the bottom, and I just hate dropping an anchor in that situation, especially in the clear water. But yeah, it allowed me to, if I'm going down the side of a grass bed, I can turn completely around and just hold myself and fish every inch of that grass bed. I don't have to paddle, so I'm making more casts. I spend more time in the strike zone. Mm-hmm. Now, the drawbacks to that are, shallow, fast-moving areas with rocks sticking up. If you get your drive hung on a rock top, it will throw you. It can throw you over. You have to be very vigilant about stuff sticking up below the surface of the water. It's a definite drawback, and sometimes you get hung on something out in the current, and the drive won't come out. Because it's twisted or something, and you can't get it. It has to be directly, So those are things you got to kind of watch out for in a craft like I'm in the Hobie PA-14.
Yeah, but, we had a good water level.
Advantage.
Yeah.
Yes,
we
had. It was perfect for that boat.
It was, you know, but look, this is kind of my point was I was asking if you single access or did a float. I was thinking that the Hobie would be really good for single accessing and going upstream. It'd be awesome for that. I mean, and that sounds like you are spinning around to hit those grass beds. You are spinning around. Now you're facing upstream. So even though you did a float down, you did a lot of spinning around to face upstream.
Oh, I did a lot of traversing.
Yeah. Right.
Yes, I would. Yep. I would go down. I would go down one side of an aisle and go around the tip and go back up the other side.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time moving upstream. Yep. Which is my favorite way to fish. I'd rather be fishing upstream any day of the week. You know.
Yeah, I ended up doing the same thing, single access, and I ended up going 4 miles upstream at one point. I wasn't planning on doing it, but I ended up going that far. And it only just because I sort of had to, I didn't do any pre-fishing because I wasn't feeling good, as I think I explained on stage. And I even threw up the first day of the tournament, Riverside, whatever. Yeah, Riverside. But yeah, I felt better after that. But anyway,
that's dedication, man.
Yeah.
Chum in the water.
Yeah, I did that with you and Corey down in Florida that time.
I think it's illegal, isn't it?
I mean, good Lord, what's going on with me? But anyway, what's weird is neither occasion was I drinking or anything, but it felt like I was, because when I threw up, you know, back in college, whenever, like, you feel better, right? If you throw, well, I felt a lot better both times. So I guess I just had a bug or something. Anyway, but I went upstream, and it was never the plan. But I'll say this, just as if you guys, you know, watching or listening, want to learn something here, I had multiple places I was going to move to. I single accessed, and I was going to move to another spot if it wasn't panning out, because I didn't have time to pre-fish. I was kind of going on a little history, but I had history in multiple places on the river. So to me, I feel like I fish with confidence. It feels good knowing that if this place doesn't work out, I can pull out. And I had a plan with some other competitors, friends of mine, to put it in at another spot. And I was just going to go down, depending on what time I got there, until wherever, and then just call them, hey, I'm here, come pick me up. And so that gave me some confidence for sure on both days. And then the second day I just stumbled onto them and figured it out. So I kept going upstream like crazy and ended up 4 miles way up the river. So, but I do like going upstream because what you said, Jody, I mean, I like both. Okay. For covering lots of water, downstream is certainly better, but upstream is nice because the way those laydowns, when you're fishing wood, fall down, they get pressed a little bit more at a downstream angle. Your casts get more parallel right with them. Yeah, you get less hangups, and you cover more of the strike zone with those moving and reaction baits, which is a good transition now. We probably should talk about, you know, the bait I was using was a 3/4 ounce sling blade spinnerbait from Z-Man, and I modify it heavily with a second skirt on it. So it's a bright chartreuse skirt. I put a second skirt to bulk it. I put a Streaks 3.75 to get it's just a little fluke style soft plastic jerk bait to get that little tail kicking at the end of that skirt and fluttering. And then I bend the wire, and I keep I pinch those blades and get them super close to the hook. And I actually bend it, make another bend. And so it's real tight. It's a good little river spinner bait. And Jody, you were using some Z-Man stuff as well, right?
Oh, everybody knows what Mr. Jody was using.
Yeah. Oh, you see this or not? This is the Z-Man jackhammer. This is the bluegill color right there. Yeah, and this is a 3/8 ounce, but I was also throwing a half ounce, which worked really well in that water. But I spent part of the day burning. Now my trailer of choice was this the minnows in the Gold Rush.
Oh, I like that.
I like the Gold Rush.
The reason why I like this Gold Rush in that stained water is the paddle on the end of that tail it's got a nice broad paddle on it, so you're getting a little extra vibration from it, and it's not quite as long as the diesel minnow and the razor shad. So when those fish are coming up, they're hitting closer to the hook, and you know that can be key in muddy water. So you want that bait a little tighter, you know, under the skirt. So those were key for me. I did have a finesse pattern on day one as a backup pattern, and I hooked a big one, about a 20-incher, and it got off on me. But I was using a shaky head around that wood. if I come up on big logs or something like that on the bank, I just pull up and drop a shaky head down. And I was using the bang sticks in a mud bug color, and with about a 3/16 to 1/4 ounce head, and just dropping it along those logs. And I picked up actually 2 of my fish came off a shaky head on day one.
Nice, very nice. I like using the 4-inch swimmers too. The swimmers, like you said, has a little bit broader boot tail. The 4-inch swimmers, I prefer it over the 4-inch diesel minnow if it's in the color I need to match the chatterbait. For example, they don't make a green pumpkin 4-inch swimmer, so I use the diesel minnow, the 4-inch diesel minnow, and green pumpkin, which you could use the minnows like you're talking about. But I'd usually use that 4-inch green pumpkin diesel. But guys, that Gold Rush is a great color. They make it in the 4-inch swimmers, and it has more of that boot tail that just like it moves more water and just thumps. And I like that color too a lot. So good call on that.
I gotta know, Jody.
I'll give you a good example.
Go ahead, Jody.
Go ahead, Jim.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
During the national championship last year, I was fishing a lake, and the fish were on the spawn. There's another time of the year where fish tend to hit short, or you skin hook them a lot. When you're using these moving baits. And I was using a diesel minnow, and what I ended up doing was I was cutting part of the diesel minnow off, and I started catching those fish because they were grabbing the tail and swimming with it, and these were big fish doing it, and that made the difference. So when I found the swimmers that like you like and these minnows here, I started using them when the fish were just tapping at it or just grabbing it and spitting it or something like that. Just shorten that up a little bit, get it closer to the end of the skirt and the hook, and a lot of times it can make a difference in catching those fish and just getting tapped.
What I was going to ask Jody is, it's real obvious that, jackhammer's your thing. I mean, we talk about it every time we have you on. You do good with that bait. Z-Man dropped a couple new chatterbaits at ICAST, and they have the cross eyes. Have you played with any of those yet? Do you like any of that?
Not yet. I just actually got some of the cross eyes. I'm dying to get them out on the water and get them in the right environment and use a couple of them. I'm really interested in that broad-bladed bait because there was one person in the top 10 that didn't throw a chatterbait. They threw a wake bait, and they smashed them. I mean, it's Christine Fisher, and she stayed with that wake bait and smashed them. And I'm thinking, that real wide-bladed bait might actually make a nice wake bait chatterbait. You know what I mean? Because I burn some of these sometimes, and they're just on the surface. And it might make. I'm really interested in seeing how that pans out. I'm looking forward to it. I'm making an order right now. So.
Oh, dude, it'll make a great wake bait. I do the same thing. And by the way, I actually didn't catch a fish on chatterbait. I hardly threw it. Also, so I didn't do chatterbait either. Yeah, I was just all spinnerbait and whopper plopper. All my fish came on those two baits, every one of them. But but dude, the new Mini Max is going to be really good. The new Mini Max chatterbait for Z-Man.
That's the one I'm excited for.
That's a good smallmouth size. It comes in a 1/2 ounce as well, so you got the smaller package, but in a heavy weight that can handle the current on the Susquehanna and places like that. The big blade chatterbait will be solid wake bait, and what you said is very interesting. We're both sponsored by Z-Man, so we know these products well. And what I will say is, and I've mentioned this on the Hooked on Wild Waters podcast with Ken, that's getting changed to the River Bassin podcast when we do our next one. So we're excited about that name change and to get back into diving into river strategy, which is really what that podcast started out as anyway. But I will say this, I've mentioned this on that podcast, the Z-Man plastics float. Because they float, and because you have different lines, you can use fluorocarbon and mono, and obviously, braid. You can tweak. If I put a 5-inch diesel minnow on a 3/8 ounce chatterbait, you've got more floating material, and it wake baits much better than if you just put the little 4-inch, 3-inch minnows on there. So you can play with what you want it to do. I mean, it's almost like you have the choice quarter ounce, really, even though it's 3/8, when you add that plastic to it, it really fishes more like a quarter in the sense that it rises it more.
Yeah.
So really you can play around with like every little micro adjustment you can get with the different plastics with all the different chatterbaits and get it just where you want it. And I love spitting it on the surface, like you're saying, Jody, and 3/8 ounce is the best for that. Cause the half you got to burn a lot quicker.
Yes.
And
I love doing that.
Yeah, me too, man. It's awesome.
I love, you can take that 3/8 ounce, Drew, and I'm sure you've done this. You take that 3/8 ounce and start it out like a swim jig. I mean, let it hit, pop, pop, pop. Let it say pop, 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 and then start your retreat. There's just so many. It's such a versatile bait, and I've seen times when they wanted it really fast, and I'll take a half ounce and an 8-3-1 reel and just burn it. Burn it right across the top of the water. And it's so versatile, man. There's so much you can do with it once you start learning it. It's
100%
crazy.
And that's why, you and I both fish a lot of chatterbaits. I use the Project Z a lot. It's probably my favorite one. But I will say this, the chatterbait's so versatile. Let's go to the opposite now. They make the jackhammer in 1.25 ounces, and the Project Z goes up to 1 ounce. And I've used those plenty of times to get down deep. So it's not just a shallow water bait or a fast moving. You can, like you're saying, go deep with them now with those weights. It's crazy how versatile it is. And it's why you hear us talk about all we threw was a chatterbait or whatever, but it's not like we're throwing the exact same one, the exact same size. We're changing it up and fishing it totally different often. So it's just that versatile of a bait.
Man, that 1.25 ounces at the dams on the Tennessee River man, it is money, dude.
I want to give that a try.
1.25 ounces gets down them fast holes. You're going down 12, 15 feet. I just throw it out and let it sink, man. Sink to the bottom and just drag it, man. Them big smallmouth will pick them up. Pickwick is a good example. Wilson's a good example. I mean, there's big smallmouth in those areas, and that 1.25 ounces is perfect for that. It's like a big ledgebuster spinner baits. They get down ounces.
Jody's talking my neck of the woods now, so I'm taking notes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I will, just because we haven't got into the numbers yet, I'm going to get into the numbers real quick. So day one, Jody was actually down in 5th on day one with 91 inches, and Drew was 13th with 88.25. Had a couple of guys up there pretty good. Sean Perkins, 93 3/4. Joe Eisner, 92. And Mr. Joe McElroy, he also had 92 inches. So you guys go over your day ones and then what adjustments you made, if any, going into day two that obviously helped you surpass these guys and get to the top spots.
Go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be kind of brief here. We've touched on a lot of it already, but I'll just say that, day one without the ability to pre-fish, I just kind of went and just kind of was trying to figure out all those about 5 or 6 key locations and key structure types that they live on. I was just trying to determine where are they. And I caught a couple of fish on a whopper plopper early and thought that was going to be the deal. And I actually ended up catching I think 4 of my fish on it, but they weren't on that like I thought they would be. And it was a grind to get those fish. And later I had to move to, when it got sunny, move to the grass bed, the grass edges. So I caught some on the grass edges and the head of an island where history did help me there. It wasn't the same island that I had the flurry on day 2 that I talked about, but it was the exact same situation. And I remember last year in the clear water, how many times I would go over the head of something that just shallow and very pebbly, and you don't think anything's there or anything of it. You're standing up, and next thing you know, a big smallmouth spooks away, and you're like, crap. There was one right there, like on nothing.
Yep.
So I remembered that was the case last year, and I caught a fish.
Never too shallow.
Yep, they aren't. They're never too shallow.
Never.
And all my adjustment on day 2 was simply, holy cow, I only landed 7 fish on day 1, and they were all good size, so I knew I was in an area with good fish. That had me encouraged. The fact that I didn't pre-fish and had to, it had me encouraged too that I was at least able to get, 7 bites and get 5 good ones. Well, I lost a couple, so I had like 9 or 10 bites, but I lost a couple. So I was like, well, I need to have a backup plan because if it gets tough again, I got to have somewhere else to go. So I created my backup plan on another really good area. And it's actually an area I did fish from the bank, pre-fishing, and caught one just standing on the bank, and a real nice one. So I knew I had that as an alternative, but I just stumbled into the magic spot at the grass bed. And once I had good fish there, I debated. I said, is this more of a reason to take out and go to my other good spot, or is this less of a reason? Like, should I stick here? I was tripping out making that decision, but I stayed. I'm glad I did. I went upstream, and to be honest with you, the wood bank that I caught them all on, the second flurry, was a bank that history-wise, I didn't fish it on day one. And history last year, it was so low, there just wasn't any current on it. It was so slow and dead. I never caught any fish on that bank. But this year, it's just the river bass experience. I just had enough in my brain to say, wait a second, even though last year they weren't here, there was no current, and now there's a nice moderate current on all this wood. I'm going to go fish it. And had I done that on day one, the story might have been a lot different, because I was right on that bank, and I actually turned and went to the other side of the river, and I'm kicking myself now for not figuring that out a little sooner, that they were actually on that bank, like hardcore on that bank, dude. But anyway, the main thing I wanted to say, my adjustment was, I was catching and burning that light wire spinner bait, and it's not a Z-Man bait. It's another one. It's like a little favorite of mine. I don't even like to give that one up. But anyway, I burned that little thing, and it's got a small blade that's about the size of those minnows, Jody, that you see flipping out. And it's a light wire, and you can only catch so many fish on it because it breaks after a while, and you got to be careful. Yeah. And I'm very nervous about that. And I don't want to like boat flip them. Me too. I saw a fish. I saw a piece of wood in front of me that was not breaking the surface. So this is kind of like 10 feet off the bank, but it's a big tree that was not breaking the surface and didn't really create much of a disturbance. So I didn't know it was there until I'm like 15 yards away from it. And I quickly just pitch out in front of me to get my spinnerbait to go over it. And like 10, 15 feet from the kayak, a big like 20-incher just comes and just annihilates it. And I've got it all on GoPro. And my only regret is, in that stained water, now that I was fishing wood, it wasn't on the grass bed where they were hitting those little minnows, that I wish I would have switched to the sling blades earlier, where you can really horse them in and even boat flip them if you want to, because that fish had such a short leash, and it was just like, it was like the freaking bull let out of the rodeo, dude. When 8 seconds, it's like just going nuts next to the boat. I'm just getting towed everywhere, and it's ballistic. And I didn't make the right decision. I mean, who knows what would have happened if I would have tried to just boat flip it that quick, because it was right there next to me. I probably could have. Spinnerbait might have broke, or I might have lost it anyway. And I should have actually hit the bail and given it more line and just drifted downstream with it and let her play herself out. And instead, I just kind of kept about the same amount of line out, and she just was just going nuts, and she just eventually threw it. But that's when I switched. That's the adjustment I made. I said, screw this, man. They don't need this light wire. They're going to hit any spinnerbait. If they're firing on this wood like they were, just train wrecking it. And I switched to the sling blades with the adjustments I talked about. And then it was just on fire for 30 minutes. And I didn't lose a fish. I'm just hooking them, bringing them in pretty darn quick with 30-pound braid and, those 13 fishing, like a medium heavy 7.5-foot rod. And, I wasn't playing around with them at that point. I was like, let's go, man. So
business time.
That was the adjustment I made.
Yeah.
All right. What about you, Jody?
Yeah. I mean, I pray for consistency in every tournament I fish. If I've got something decent going, I can usually pull that off. I just want both days to be the same in these Hobie tournaments, and the same way if I'm fishing a KBF tournament, I want that consistency. Both days, that lets me know I'm doing something right. But on the first day of the tournament, I started out. I was fishing in a little bit of clear water on my way over to the muddy stuff, and I didn't catch anything out of it. But I knew there was fish in there. It just looked too good. It had a nice ledge running across through there, and had nice slack holes, a lot of current seams, and ran into a grass bed that was still in the clear water. And I just didn't catch anything off of them. So I wanted to try to capitalize on that first, 15, 20 minutes of fishing in the morning when it's still kind of dark. So I switched from a flashy blade. I switched off from the bluegill. I switched to a green pumpkin, and I took a Sharpie and blackened the blade on it. And I threw the deal and a diesel minnow on it. And I actually picked up. I got caught a 17 on day two by making that adjustment just after the bell rang to go, and I missed one that I know was probably 20 inches, and I had another one about 19 to the boat. He got off. I mean, it was a horrible way to start my day, but I felt confident because I'm hooking those fish, and then as it got more and more daylight, the bite kind of lightened up a little bit, and that's when I switched back to the bladed, the shinier blade, the gold bladed, the bluegill, and I put that gold. What is that?
Gold Rush.
I can't remember. I always call this golden boy, but it's not. It's got the Gold Rush. I changed that trailer out. As soon as I changed the trailer out, I had a red bone on this because red bone works real well on this color, that bluegill color. But just as soon as they was getting kind of tappy, and I was barely hooking them on the mouth a little bit. Just as soon as I switched out to that Gold Rush, man, they were choking it. I mean, they were just slamming it hard. I was hooking them way back in the mouth, farther back in the roof of the mouth. I even hooked some in the bottom. It was crazy how hard they were hitting that bait. And that was a big adjustment. And I made a little adjustment in the areas I fished on day 2. Day 1, I was still concentrating on some wood because I caught a few fish off of wood. And day 2, I kind of gave that up. I gave up the shaky head bite altogether because it was taking me longer to find the fish on the wood. I was spending a lot of time on it. It wasn't quite as productive as what I was finding out there using moving bait out in the open, out there in the eelgrass and stuff. So I kind of gave up on it on day 2 and just stuck just with that chatterbait. And I'm glad I did, man. I caught over 5 limits, on day 2. I mean, it was crazy. Yeah. It was absolutely. I caught so many 15s to 17s. I caught so many of those fish, which is wonderful because that tells us we had a great year class the year of that spawn, and it's just going to get better here in the next couple of years. Those fish are going to be your 18s and 19s. And it's going to be on fire next years.
Dude,
so those were the big adjustments I made. I concentrated more on the grass beds and the 2 different types of grass. That eelgrass, it grows basically in like mud bottoms. And those fish were in it. I mean, it was great once I figured that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I caught 3 fish.
That's
maybe
about the only adjustment I made.
Yeah. That was good adjustment. Sounds like obviously it was the right ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, I caught 3 fish that were under 15 inches all week.
I just think they Yep.
So
it's great fishery, dude. Great
it's
fishery.
Unreal. It's going to be really good.
I'm looking forward to the next couple of years up there.
Oh,
About 5 years ago, there was a class of fish in there. They were all between 18 and 20. I mean, you could go up there, and it was amazing how many 18 to 20-inch fish that you could catch in a day up there. And then it kind of dropped off for a couple of years. But I see that next class coming in, and I think it's going to happen in the next 2 to 3 years. It's going to be right back where it was 5 years ago.
Yeah,
and
I think so.
I need to go ahead and put that on my schedule then.
Put it on, man. Hey, by the way, Jody, have you ever caught a largemouth up in the not the largemouth section by the, like you talked about where Jay was in town, but have you ever caught a largemouth upstream in the actual flowing river section? Because I caught my first one. It was about a 6 or 7 inch largemouth upstream, and I was like, "What are you doing up here, man?" So it was funny.
I caught 2.
Yep.
I caught 2. Actually one of them was a spot. It was about a 16-inch spot. I caught it just above Marysville, and the second one I caught a 17-inch largemouth right there at McKee Half Falls. And that big slow stretch above it, not on the ledge side over there. But and it's nothing but a big slow stretch with a big bunch of grass beds in it.
Yeah, a lot of grass. I can see that.
I caught one really nice. Yeah.
That's scary. That's
the only 2 largemouth I've even caught.
Yeah.
Yeah, I caught a spot, dude. But it wasn't okay. Let me clarify. Not a Coosa spot.
Not a Coosa spot, right? That's all that matters. At Kentucky, they don't hybridize really, so that's good. But hey, here's another quick fact. If you guys don't know this, did you know that the Susquehanna River smallmouth are not native to the Susquehanna River? You guys aware of that?
Yes.
Huh.
Isn't that
I
odd?
did not know
James
that.
River either.
It's a James River either. Yeah, it's a mecca for smallmouth. The James is unbelievable for smallies. They're not native to the Susquehanna or the James. It's beautiful as a more like
they are native to the new.
To the new they are, absolutely. The New River they are. So anyway, that's just an interesting story on why it's so critical to not move the Coosa strain spotted bass around, because they hybridize with everything. They're the only ones that hybridize with every black bass species except for largemouth. So when you put a Coosa strain spotted bass population in somewhere, you will do to the what the smallmouth did to the Susquehanna, the Alabama bass, the Coosa strain spotted bass will do over time to everywhere, and you will no longer have a pure strain smallmouth, and they'll be gone. So be aware of that. But anyway,
if I'm not mistaken,
go ahead.
If I'm not mistaken, Drew, the flathead catfish is not indigenous to Susky either.
It's not, which is why they thought was one of the big problems on why the population for smallmouth sort of declined, or you had a bad few years there. But it's good to see that it maybe wasn't due to that. And there was a couple things. I think some water issues, something happened with water, and plus the flatheads. And it's just good to know that it's back and it's okay and healthy. I've never seen such a fertile fishery with, you just step on crawfish constantly, hellgrammites and stuff like that.
Oh,
lift up
it's crazy. And the thing of it is, most of the time, those smallmouth are feeding on live minnow baits.
Yeah,
they're not feeding on crawdad. I went up there with a jig and did horrible, dude. And that's all I used to throw was a jig, everywhere. And I go up there and it's like, but as soon as I pick up a spinner bait or some kind of minnow imitator, it seems like they tear it up. But those fish, man, that build that they have, those genetics, did they come from Erie or what? I don't know, man. But those fish are built like Erie fish. And living in that current, when you get a fish with that wide build and you give them river muscles, that's the hardest fighting smallmouth I've ever tried to get in. If they get downstream from you, like you was talking, that one got downstream from you, and they turn sideways, they're horrible to try to get it. You better get on top of them and just run downstream with them, because they're going to pull off. I've had them straighten out treble hooks and just pull loose. I mean, they're amazing how well they fight. I caught a 15-inch fish up there, and on day one, I could have swore it was going to be a 19. I was fighting it, man. I was doing everything perfect. I didn't want to lose it. I pulled in as a 15-inch.
Yeah,
it must have weighed 2.5 pounds.
Yep, it's unbelievable, man. Real quick, I have one last question for you, Jody. How many people were at your ramp? Did you have a crowd, or were you kind of by yourself? Over there.
Yeah, it's a popular place. There was probably maybe 15 or 20 on day one.
Okay.
But on day two, there was only maybe 10.
Yeah.
It's a popular place to sit in right there. People float it all the time. It's right there at Port Trevorton. And
okay.
And so they sit in there. But here's the interesting thing, dude. I didn't get caught up in that crowd. I mean, they hung around their smilings in there, and a lot of people hung in there for a long time. But I took my time, stayed high, and when they moved out, I just went down and I had my pick. There's only maybe one or two people in that area. After about an hour, they were all gone.
Yep. Yeah, that's cool,
awesome.
man.
So it was
that's
amazing.
amazing. Well, even more respect that you put in with that many people and pulled off those fish, especially with people going ahead of you. Mentally, it can mess you up a little bit sometimes when that happens. But obviously, you're an experienced angler, and you know how the importance of boat positioning and the right angles and those casts, and you know what I mean. How people miss
presentation,
a lot of those fish.
Man.
Yeah, they do, and as you see by what happened to me, those flurries. If you're not at the right place at the right time, it doesn't matter. You actually
you miss altogether.
Did you see this too, Jody? When the sun just breaches over the trees and it actually starts hitting the water, they kind of come to life for a little bit of a flurry. And those guys had left those spots already, and you had it all to yourself. So that's interesting. There was nobody.
That's the reason. that's the reason why I changed to that gold blade, because when that sun came up, dude, and you put that gold on there, I mean, it was just, you could see it coming through that water, and it was just, it was awesome.
Flashes,
yeah. And that was the ticket.
Yeah,
it was.
That's amazing.
It was awesome. Yeah.
Well, it definitely showed out again. Final numbers for anybody wondering that hadn't checked it out. Jody with 183.5 for the 2-day. As mentioned, Ewing Minor got second, not too far off from him, 182 3/4, and Drew right behind him with 181. There was a bunch of, I mean, it was a very good, top 10. Everybody was, right in there. It was a really good day for a lot of people.
Hey, do you mind if I read off the rest of that top 10?
Day one top 10, go ahead, that 90 inches. Yeah,
go ahead.
Top 10 or 90. All right, I'll read off. So Jay Wallen, who did really, he really struggled, admittedly, last year, came back. So shout out to him for a fourth place, just a quarter of an inch behind me. So great job to Jay. Jordan Marshall.
I was so glad to see him come back.
Yeah. Oh, me too, man. He's a good dude. Jordan Marshall at 5th place, a river hammer. I mean, super consistent, 90 1/4 and 89 1/4. Christine Fisher, we all know what she can do. And she actually came back and had the second highest day 2 of anybody. She had 84 3/4 on day 1, 93.5, which was, I believe, higher than even Perkins had on day 1. And so that was very impressive what she was able to do. And Dusty Yacker was in 7th. Jason Broach was in 8th, Chad Foster in 9th, and Steven Sisto in 10th. So congrats to all those guys. Just want to get those names out there. And by the way, I know we don't have Ewing Minor on here, but yeah, for sure, Jody. And Ewing Minor is in the lead for the AOY standings right now. So he's probably going to retain that lead all the way to the TOC. It's hard to see him because he has a first and 2 seconds, or 2 firsts and a second.
I think it's 2 firsts and a second.
Yeah, it's
like
insane.
That.
He's going to be in the lead heading into Eufaula, but so I'm sure we'll have him on. I didn't realize, Jimmy, when we were scheduling this until we texted that you guys have not had him on. Is that correct?
No, we had him on after his win. I think it was on Hartwell, maybe.
Okay. Gotcha. So you did. Okay. Well, we'll have to have him on again.
We will.
Before the TOC, because that's always a fun one. Jody, you and Russ and I did that last year when we were 1, 2, and 3.
Yes.
Heading into the TOC. It's all coming down to that tournament again. It always does come down to that tournament because that's the one tournament that guarantees that all the top anglers are all going to be there fishing at the same time, and you can't call it out. So it always comes down to the TOC. You just need to be in position, the top 10, 8 to 10 places to do well at that event and hopefully win it. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun, man. I can't wait. But shout out to him, and we'll have him on, I'm sure, before the TOC. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, Jody, congrats again on your win. And this is where we let you thank everybody that makes fishing easy for you. For sure.
Oh, man, I use that chattergrass rod. I've got the prototype of it, the original prototype of the chattergrass rod that's coming out in September by Cashin. Man, that rod is legit. I mean, I love that rod. I've not had any problems out of it. It's light. It's sensitive. I mean, you can feel everything on it. So that rod really pulled me through this tournament and done well. I could count on it, gave me confidence. Z-Man baits. Oh, what can you say? I mean, it's just they were in every aspect of the top 10 or 15 in that tournament. They had a presence there like I've not seen in tournaments anywhere. I mean, the presence of Z-Man at that tournament was amazing. Yeah, and Dakota Lithium. yeah, man. It's love, man.
It's so hard to use. That's what I'm saying. It's backwards.
Backwards. I love that you were searching for it.
Man, like,
where is it?
I was like, man, what is this, man?
It's so weird. It's backwards.
I got 2 left hands. I got 2 left hands. I don't know why. Yeah, man. No, big shout out to Dakota Lithium. Yeah, I mean, dude, I camped up there for 3 days in my truck, and I used that little power box to power my phone, I blew up my air mattress every day with it. You know, it's got a flashlight on it. I rigged with it. I mean, it's just an amazing thing to have with you. I love it. It's a great little tool. I really appreciate them. Catch boards. I mean, of course, everybody uses catch boards, but I mean, the little the holder for your identifier that they got out, man, that thing's slick. Torpedo. I know we couldn't use them during the tournament, but man, it got me through I covered a lot of water, and what little time I had to fish during pre-fishing with those motors, man. I mean, they helped me a lot. I always, you know, I've been with Torpedo for a while now. Steve Turkla and Jeff Little and Matt Ball is our team captain. I mean, those guys are great. I love them all. And got to fish with Matt on this tournament. Always a pleasure to be around him. You know, Yak Attack. Yeah, you know, Yak Attack is, I mean, shoot, everything I got on my boat that snaps or swivels or holds the camera or, you know, it's all Yak Attack. Big shout out to them. And yeah, that's about it, man.
That's awesome. Well, Drew, you did awesome too. So go ahead and tell us just a refresher on who made it easier for you.
Oh man, yeah, I've got a long list here. I'll try to keep it short. But you know, I'm out there obviously in the CK1 Venture from Crescent and pre-fishing. I use that little ultralight, like I said, a lot. It's easy to throw and go. You know, it's super lightweight. And I tell you what, the older I get, man, the more that weight matters to me a lot to be able to put into some of those places that are hard to reach and access. And but then the Benny Branches paddle was key for me. You know, a lightweight Angler Pro like I had was solid. I'm using 13 fishing rods and reels with Cortland Master Braid line. You know, usually like I said, 30-pound braid, and then on the Whopper Plopper I was throwing 40. And then what else do I have? Again, Yak Attack gear was all over it. I used that new double header that they sent us, a lot of the team guys, and it was awesome. I love that thing, man. It was really slick. And it's kind of nice to have a little bit of a rod stager up there with it. That's how I used it. You can turn it side parallel or you know, perpendicular, and use it either you know, as a paddle holder on the side or a rod holder on the side, going parallel with your kayak. Or like I said, I turned it the other way, and it's a rod stager up there with the rotor grips that are on it. So you guys should check out that product. It's really slick. And you know, catch outdoors, like you said, the catch boards. I mean, those guys have been, you know, supporting me this year in a big way, and I really appreciate them. The Smith optics, like I said, a couple times it came in really key. I mean, if you don't have good polarized, you know, glasses, you can't see something in the water. You know, that's critical. I saw that log, and granted, you know, I lost a fish, but that wasn't any fault of you know, the sunglasses. They allowed me to see that log. I threw in, like I said, just in time, got the bite. I just blew it on the actual landing. But the Smith optics have been huge for me. My biggest supporter is Real Tree Fishing. They're just amazing every year. They really care about kayak fishing, care about fishing in general. So couldn't do it without those guys. And of course, Z-Man, like we've already talked a lot about, definitely solid as well. So I think I'm missing somebody. Power pole, I didn't, you know, use it this tournament, but I got a new kayak coming out with Crescent that'll have, you know, the power pole bracket on the back, so, or the 4-hole pattern with inserts, so you can easily put it on. I can't wait for that to come out here. And
I need to start seeing like sneak peeks of this thing, dude. Man. I'm getting so like I'm so ready.
Know. It's a bummer in this day and age how things keep getting delayed because of shipping, and how COVID still has this delayed effect on supply chain, and it's frustrating, but it'll be out later this year, so hang tight. But anyway, the power pole's been great to me as well, and yeah, I mean, I'm missing some people, I'm sure, but you guys know, you know, just follow me on social media. Follow Jody. He's got a new YouTube thing he's working on, and it's been really cool to see that and see him growing that. So follow Jody on social. Follow me on social. You'll learn more about all of the products that we use to be successful. So, yeah, big shout out to all those folks, and big thanks to Hobie and AJ and Steve and the whole crew. They just do a really, really good job, and you know, we couldn't have these incredible memories without them. You know, all the time they put into it. So big shout out to them. And actually, shout out to, I forgot to mention, the big bass was Ryan Lambert. So Lunch Money Lambert, you know, he seems to always come through with something. So he got big bass, and you know, he spent a lot of time with those guys working on that save, you know, the save JT or, you know, tournament. So anyway, big shout out to those guys. And all they did for that, and he got rewarded with big bass. So
that's right.
Kudos to him as well. So.
Well, all right. Well, Jody, I'll let you go finally. I know you need to go catch you some sleep, man. I know you've been hard at it even after the tournament. So we appreciate having you, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again later on this year.
And always a pleasure, guys. Always enjoy coming on and talking with you guys. Drew, it's always good to be around you, dude. I like seeing you at the tournaments, and I love competing
Absolutely.
with you. And I'll see you in the next one.
Sounds good, buddy. Same here.
All right. Good night, Jody. All right. Another fun one to talk about. Now we're going to roll into everything else that happened this weekend around the country.
Heck yeah.
Got a couple fun ones. We'll go right into the Great Lake Kayak Fishing Series. They were up on the Mississippi River, Pool 7, 8, and 9, which that's coming up for a bunch of the different series is running around right now.
I want to hear these numbers. This is going to mean a lot to me right now.
They had 29 anglers. First place, Jeremiah Burris with 80.5. Second place, Greg Vickers with 79. Third place, Joshua Gouger with 77.25. So I'm kind of curious to know what the water's looking like and if they've had a lot of rain or because I know we had. Sure. I think this is the third week in the row we've had an event up there, and if I'm not mistaken, this is the lowest the numbers have been.
Yeah, it's a low. I know the water's low, but I've just pulled up the Hobie Bos from last year. And Russ had won, I believe. And did he win? Yeah, he won. Day one, he had 87.75, and day two, he had 86.75. But on day two, somebody, Alex Steffen, put up 90.75. So yeah, and another guy, Nick Matthews, last year had 87 in second place. Third place, Adam Reiser at 86.75. Again, this is all day one. 85, 80. I mean, you got to go all the way down to. I mean, my goodness. You got to get to 80 inches, which is what you said he had. You got to go down to 22nd place with Mr. Jody Queen, 80.25 inches. And Christine had basically the same thing, 79.75 last year, and 23rd place after day one. So something is going on, like you said, with the water, or something's seems a little low.
Yeah, could just be one of those tough weekends. I know that I was actually checking the weather up there. I don't even know why. But I guess I was talking to somebody thinking that last year, this time of the year, I was up there and the weather, the temperature difference just between being here in Alabama and up there was huge. Highs 95 here, high 70 there. When I looked this week, it was 94 there. Mm-hmm. So super hot. Maybe they're, having some of those high pressure lulls like we've been getting down here.
Yeah.
But who knows? We'll see how it goes. I can't wait. I'm going up in, I think it's September is when I'll be up there. I was hoping to go for the Hobie, but I'm not going to make that one. I'll be at the beach. So,
hey, it's not bad.
Nope. I thought about trying to trade in weekends, move the beach trip, but no, I think I'd rather just relax. So moving on, Carolina Kayak Anglers, they had their sixth event on Randleman. 57 anglers. First place, Marcus Smith with 83.75. Second place, Shelly Effred with 82.25. And third place, Ricky Rowland. Just had him on, actually, with 82. Moving on from there, the Real Crazy Kayak Fishing Tour. Uh-oh, press the button. They were on the Etowah River and Allatoona Lake out in Georgia. 32 anglers. My man, Mr. Craig Dye, got that win with 86.5.
Nice.
I love hearing Craig, man. I hadn't heard his name out there in a while. Craig's such a good guy.
He is, yep. Been fishing some co-angler stuff on the bass boat side, but he's still fishing some kayak tournaments too. So yeah, he's always catching them. Good dude.
Second place, Rocky Lee with 80.75, and third place, Gage Coley with 79.25. Moving on from there, New York kayak bass fishing was on Onondaga Lake. I might have got that right. 34 anglers. First place, Nathan Yakuzo with 92.75. Good finish. Second place, Jacob Turner with 87.5. Third place, Thomas Blaskazinski with 82.25. Sorry if I butchered your last name, buddy. But New York's been having some killer numbers this year.
Oh, yeah.
It makes me want to actually go up there and check it out. Then I think about, it's New York, man. And I change my mind.
Yeah. There's a lot of country in New York, man. There's a lot of beautiful country. It's like everyone thinks of the city, but dude, it's amazing. Champlain and the Adirondacks, and there's incredible fishing up there.
It's just like what a lot of people think with California. I worked with a guy that's from upstate New York, and he's more country than I am, and it's like, you know, way bigger fisherman and hunter. And he's like, no, we just get a bad rap from that small area of our state. So moving on, the Keystone Bass Kayak Series is on Kell Lake out in PA. 36 anglers. First place, Hanzo Lucas, 74.5. Second place, Nate Hall, 70. Third place, Brent Heinrich with 68.25. The Oklahoma Kayak Anglers had a charity tournament going on Lake Tenkiller. 30 anglers. Wow. This is a tough one. 5 fish limit. Luke Aaron caught 47.75 and only caught 3 fish. And that was what it took to win it.
Wow.
So super tough day out there. Second place, Adam Richardson, also with 3 fish, 43.5. Third place, Nathan Parker, 30 inches with 2 fish. All the proceeds from that tournament were donated to John Faulkner, who has been a big part of the Oklahoma fishing scene, who was just diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. So, you know, shout out to those guys for putting something good on for that.
Yeah, for sure, man. Keep him in our prayers.
Oh, yeah. I hate that the fishing wasn't better for that tournament. You know, you want to see it all, charity events, everything on the positive side, but shout out to the guys that stuck it out.
Yeah, for sure.
Moving on from there, we have the Washington Kayak Bass Fishing Tour event number 4 on Lake Tapps in Tacoma. 31 anglers. First place, Brendan Henning with 77.25. Second place, Josh Ruffcorn with 73.75. Third place, James Davis with 73 inches. Just a few left. American Bass Association Kayak Series Championship was a statewide event in California. 27 anglers, 5 fish limit. First place, Rachel Uribe with 84.75. Second place, Richard Clark, only a half inch behind with 84.25. Third place, Jonathan DeMonet with 84. One more in California. The Urban Angler Club of LA. We're in Castaic Lagoon. 25 anglers, 5 fish limit. First place, Ted Yang with 47. Second place, Gilbert Garcia with 44.25. Ooh, another set of tough ones.
Mm-hmm.
Third place, Dominic Doan with 44. There were only 21 fish caught, and no one out of the top 10 caught a fish. So the last one,
wow.
I saved this for last just because a bunch of my buddies were in this, and I wanted to make them think I was going to forget about it even after they messaged me to make sure I covered it. The Central Tennessee Kayak Anglers and the Cumberland Kayak Trail did a joint River Radius event, and it was a team event, but they also awarded for the individual side too. So Team Nolan Dole, which was Robert Knoll and Trey Johnson, took the win with 97.75 combined inches. And I think that was a 3-fish tournament. I'm trying to look. Yeah. So I think it's best 3 between you and your partner or something like, I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
But big shout out to my buddy, Will McInnes. His team didn't come out on top, but he came out on top as top angler with 50.5 for his best 3. So good job, Will. I'm proud of you, buddy.
Nice job. That's cool.
And shout out just a couple of more guys that part of the Music City Outdoors team that I put together. Trey Johnson, his team won 4th place. Waylon West, he's in the running, or he's actually winning Angler of the Year right now for CTKA, and Garrett Johnson, who put all that event together. You know, all great guys. Proud to be able to tell the world about you.
For sure.
Well, that was it.
Yeah, that's about it. The only last thing I'll mention is I know a press release went out today yesterday about the U.S. kayak fishing team, and the only thing I want to mention about that, and I know it was actually already announced probably a month or so ago. I just don't think I've mentioned it on the show. Is there's going to be a U.S. Open event held on, I believe, Center Hill Lake and the Cumberland. Is it Cumberland River right there? It's you can fish a river and a lake. I think it's Center Hill. And it's the weekend. It should be the second weekend of September because there's a KBF Kentucky Lake, the U.S. Open, and then Hobie. Only thing I want to say about it real quick is, guys, this is a really cool thing. It's not a competitor of KBF or Hobie or Bass. This is like Team USA is just like the Olympics. It's part of the Pan American Games, which is all part of the overall Olympic, process, or if you will. And there's a World Championships already scheduled for April, I think 20 through 25th of 2022. And so the USA team is, I believe it's myself, Russ Snyders, Jackson Orr, Cody Milton, Guillermo Gonzalez, Eric Jackson, Ron Champion, and the winner of that U.S. Open. That will be the last spot on the USA team. So go get signed up for that. It's for a good cause. That itself actually has a payout like anything else, right? Like a Hobie or a bass. But what you're trying to do is get involved to eventually this is going to, they say it's going to be an Olympic sport, kayak fishing. I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but the guys who actually head it up do say it's very, very likely. They feel like it's inevitable. It will be an Olympic sport. But
they turn everything into an Olympic sport, so we better get our piece of that pie.
I know, right? And we should. Seriously, if some things are Olympic sport, this should be. I just think it's odd that I don't know any Olympic sport that involves an animal. You know what I mean? Like, is there anything that involves an animal in any way? Like something that's not just your own physical, ability and coordination. This involves something that's
completely
kind of out of your control.
Not in control.
Not in control. So I don't know, but maybe it will be because it's an athletic. No motors are allowed in their format. So we'll see. But anyway, they want to get a bunch of people there, raise a lot of money. And like I said, it's not like you got to choose this over any one of the other ones, because the actual organization itself is to help grow the sport of kayak fishing, right? And get it more on the stage by having more of the Pan American Games. And obviously we have the World Championships already scheduled. I think it goes World Championships a year, and then all the around the world you compete in your own region. So we're the Pan American championships, and then it's World Championships again, Pan American, and everyone else around the world is doing their own individual. And it's not always black bass in other parts of the world. And we're not like when we go to Panama for the one that was canceled due to COVID, we were all supposed to go to Panama and compete against all the Pan American countries, and we were going to be catching snook, rainbow bass, and peacock bass with the 3 species we were allowed to weigh in, or whatever, measure in, I guess, for our tournament on the big giant lake there that's part of the Panama Canal. So anyway, it's a real cool thing. It's meant to help grow the sport. So let's get out there and support the U.S. Open. If you guys are the KBF event and the Hobie event are right on either side of that lake I'm talking about, Center Hill. So it's right there in Tennessee. So just make an extra weekend out of it and come join that, get paid out. But if you get on Team USA, trust me, it's not about winning money, going to the World Championship.
You're representing your country.
And I'm telling you, it was the coolest experience I've ever had in 2019 when we had those Pan American Games, and Venezuela's there, and Puerto Rico and Mexico, and you see Canada and all the kayak anglers there were probably 10 countries there represented. And it was just such a cool bonding experience. It was something beyond money, beyond anything else. It was just so genuine. Everyone's passionate about their country. So check out the U.S. Open, guys. Support that, and it should be just a good time.
Who won the 19? Was it Mexico?
Well, U.S. won the team.
U.S.
won the team. It was just hard to kind of. It's difficult for them, I'm sure, coming in from another country, not knowing the lakes, and we all know the lakes, the U.S. And eventually, obviously, we're going to be in Panama, like I said. We'll be in Mexico for one of the World Championships, and they'll have kind of home field advantage. But Team USA won overall. Eric Jackson won gold, and I won silver, and I think Matt Ball got bronze.
Okay,
so,
I couldn't, and I could be thinking of a totally separate. I watched some coverage of one of those, and I can't remember what it was. I could be even thinking of like Hobie Worlds or something like that.
Maybe.
I watch so much stuff, man. It all gets lost in the fuzz.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think maybe Emily Jackson got gold on the women's side. But anyway, I'm getting all confused now. But I know I was second and EJ was first, and he held home court advantage right there on that lake, like he should have. So
that's right.
Yeah, man. Good show.
Well, another good show, and we'll hit y'all again next week. We'll probably do a club from around the country. I don't think we've got anything. I think we just covered a bass, so we probably won't cover the Chesapeake Bay event. Just to give some of these other clubs a chance to shout out. We'll see what gets shaken up in the country, or
we'll see.
We'll figure it out.
We'll see. Well, maybe we'll catch up on the fantasy stats and see what the earnings are from the latest, or do something like that since we didn't touch on it today. And then maybe touch on the AOY standings when they get updated from Hobie and KBF, and we'll make it a good show. We'll do some cool stuff, I'm sure. And we'll find a good, like you said, someone really, really unique and different and highlight some other clubs. So I'm looking forward to it, buddy.
All right, man. Well, we'll see everybody next week. Thanks, everybody, again, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Peace out.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode on Paddle and Fin. Don't forget to go check out our website at paddle_and_fin.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel at Paddle and Fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest on a future episode, feel free to email us at paddle_and_fin@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paddle and Fin on Facebook and Instagram. Shout out to our show supporters, Angler. The Angler button and app just makes for a better time on the water and creates a virtual logbook for every fishing outing out on the water. Shout out to Rocktown Adventures, located in northern Illinois, for all your kayaking, camping, and hiking needs. Shout out to Jig Masters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com